Good, great. So we can start. Gavel, the meeting will come to order. The time is now 4:02 p.m. on Wednesday, March 8th, 2023. This is a meeting of the Executive Committee of the District of Columbia Commission on the Arts and Humanities. My name is Reggie Van Lee, Chairperson of the Commission. I am wearing a navy suit and white shirt. I'll now call the roll. When you hear your name, please answer present. Maggie Fitzpatrick,
Present.
Quanice Floyd, Kimber Minkiti,
Present.
Hector Torres, Gretchen Warden,
Present.
and myself. Others are here as visitors, I guess, if you're not executive committee. So I'm not ignoring you, Carla. It's just that for this role, for the quorum count, it doesn't work. So a quorum is present. This is a meeting of a public body held in open session in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. Notice of the meeting was posted on the commission's website, dcarts.dc.gov, and on the DC Office of Open Government's Central Meetings calendar. The meeting is being conducted remotely using the Cisco WebEx virtual meeting platform and is being live streamed to the Commission's YouTube channel. An electronic recording of the meeting will be available for viewing online following the conclusion of the meeting. I will now read the land acknowledgement. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We stand on the ancestral lands of the CAH and the Piscataway people. We pay respects to the elders past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events and to use such truths to guide the legacy of the Arts Commission. I will now go into the agenda for today, starting with an update, finance update from David.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Brian and Terrell are joining us today. So just briefly, we're going to give you an update on where we are for FY23 spending, give you an approximate amount of money that's left to be spent or allocated for the year. And then we have some updates on FY24, FY24's budget. So Brian, do you mind sort of sharing an update on FY23 and we can remind folks of some of the challenges that we've faced with pushing monies out the door this year.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Allende. I'm the Resource Allocation Officer for the Commission. I'm appearing today in a gray sweater, and I'd like to just give a brief update as it pertains to the purchase orders established as well as payments out the door. If I may share, I'm hoping I can share. Can everyone see what's on my screen?
Yes, it's just popped up.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so to date, the Commission has authorized 900 grants. In total, is the font fine? Can everyone see everything clearly? Yes. Okay, great. So of the 900 grants that have been authorized through the Commission, 798 of those have been established as purchase orders. The column here in green represents grant agreements that we have received and are about to become or go through the obligation process. So that's another additional 39, which leaves us a remaining 62 grants to either that are either going through registration or some form of compliance check. So of the 900 grants that was authorized, like I said, 798 are available for payment, and the percentage of purchase orders entered is 89. As David just stated, the available balance in grants to date and that's excluding the pending announcement for the FAB-R grants, is $3.1 million. Should I pause there for any questions?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So the purchase orders having been entered doesn't mean they've gotten the money yet, because then the grantees have to do something, right?
Correct. So the purchase orders that have yet to be entered, which is these two columns here, the 39 purchase orders we will enter within the next day or so. But there's 62 where there's something that we require some action from the grantees.
But from our side,
Yes,
we
sir.
will have done everything that we could do on our side, and now it'll be up to the grantees once we get the 39 done, correct?
Once we get the 39, then we'll still be waiting for the 62.
Right.
Grantees. Yes.
Right, the 62. Okay, just wanted to make sure, because again, as we're out and about and grantees come and talk about they haven't gotten their money, I don't want us to say, well, you know, everybody will have gotten their money once we get through the 39. There's still 62 that on the grantee side,
Right.
things that need to be done. And we will work with them as best we can to clean those up as quickly as possible.
Yes, sir. The next slide is a slide about the payments. To date of the 798, we have issued 664 payments, totaling $14.3 million. The numbers here represent the actual number of payments that gone out by program. For example, the Art Bank program has 38 payments out the door, or $227,000. And so this represents a pretty good number, but as we stated, we still have a little bit to go here.
And Brian, if I can give a little bit of context, the dollar figure is a little bit deceiving because a lot, or the majority of organizational grants come in two payments. So for example, if you look at the GOS line, it looks as if we've only paid out $8+ million of a $19+ million allocation, but that will double once folks submit their interim reports, and then we push second payments out the door.
Are there any additional questions regarding payments?
No, proceed.
Okay. From there, the only thing else that I can offer at this point is we're talking about the FY24 budget that's forthcoming in terms of where we are with the payments. Excuse me, with the budget itself. Later this month, the mayor will appear before the council to defend the budget for fiscal year 24. As a result of a citywide initiative, cost-saving measures, the agency has been asked to decrease its proposed budget for FY24. The proposal at the present time is $3 million, and that is going to impact every aspect of our budget: personnel, contracts, as well as grants.
But make it clear that the request from them initially was 6
6 million.
million.
That's
because
correct.
they thought that was left in the fund balance. And David, maybe you can talk about what that $3 million reduction really does impact versus what it does not impact.
Of course. Our budget, we had designed the FY23 budget and the FY24 budget to be relatively flat, again, to sort of have some consistency or stability in the budgets. And that's why we took $6 million from the fund balance to use for the FY24 budget. So when we were asked to make a contribution to ensure that the city's overall budget was balanced for FY24, I went back and I looked at the grants line and looked at this year to see what we had committed and what we could possibly shave off of next year's. So of the $3 million, $1.5 million will come from the grants budget. We'll still meet our legislated percentage. I think it's about 79%. We're legislated to push at least 78% out the door in grants. And then, as Brian mentioned, the balance of 1.5 will come from personnel. We I've mentioned before that we're trying to create or build the administrative side of what it is we do to match our growing budget. And so we were being pretty ambitious with the number of new FTEs we wanted for FY24. So we will reduce the number of new FTEs. And then we looked at the various contract line items in the budget and whittled them down. So it's about $500,000 in new payroll savings, and then about just over $1 million in contract savings, totaling the $3 million.
So clarify, David, and I know the answer already, but this will not impact people that we have made commitments to, they're not getting money that they are deserved. And it won't impact, it won't cause a decrease in funding for next year, it just will be a flatness in funding. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
So just so that you know, though this is not wonderful for our grantees, it's not going to hurt in the way that suggests we're going to reduce your funding or money we promised you we're going to pull back. That's not happening.
That is correct.
Other questions, comments? Especially for the other, I've seen all this. I knew it already, but for Maggie and Quanice and Kimber and Carla, Gretchen, any questions, concerns about what's happening with our budget?
None from me, Reggie. Thank you.
I'm fine.
Kimber?
Reggie, I'm sorry.
I'm good too. Thank you.
Okay, Quanice?
No, I'm just thinking around the implications of staffing. So I know you all haven't gotten that far yet, but just to keep us, abreast of that.
So as it pertains to staffing, there hasn't been any reductions, meaning in the staffing that's currently on board. These were newly proposed positions for fiscal year 24 that we'd like to hire. But I mean, I'm optimistic that at some point during 24, there'll be an opportunity to continue with the plan. Maybe not to the degree that we initially set out upon, but somewhat close to it.
Is there any ability to increase the staff at all from
Yes.
the current headcount? So
And-
as we've increased our grants activity, it's not as though we're not adding any staff, we're just not adding as many and in the different positions that we had hoped for.
Correct. That's correct.
Correct.
Quanice, does that answer your question?
Yes, I just also am interested in learning, if there's been an organizational assessment of where those gaps are, so that if we are increasing staff, we know where you all are ideally wanting those gaps to be filled.
Yes, Quanice, that is a great question. With the FY24 budget, Brian and I worked on it with our agency's finance officer back in October, November. We sort of work a year out. And so we have to predict what our staffing needs are a year in advance. And so we did look at, so for example, there's a desire to bring a diversity and inclusion officer on board for FY24 as an FTE. And so that was one of the positions. We looked at bringing an events person on. We used to have an events department. So we were pretty thoughtful about how we looked at each department and the needs. There were a total of 12 new positions, 10 to 12 new positions. So we're looking at probably scaling down to just half of those as new positions. And again, we'll go through to see the ones that we really need to prioritize for FY24, and hopefully, as Brian said, as FY24 progresses, we can build them into the budget for FY25.
Okay. So clearly this is management's prerogative, but I'm hoping you will give us a sneak peek at that. So for example, I'm hoping the diversity position can last and not go away. But I mean, I don't know what's in the 12. So at some point, it would be helpful if we just had some input to management's final decision. But if we could have some input, that would be good.
Of course, no, we're happy to share that and have you weigh in. So,
Good. I don't, did I hear from you, Gretchen?
No, Reggie, but I'm fine with it. I understand what's going on.
Okay, it's important if the executive committee understands and can at least speak to, if not defend, what we're doing. Now, there's a possibility that they won't accept our $3 million proposal. They may want more. But right now, early indications from conversations I've had with the mayor's office are that they may be okay with this, that they are happy that we were willing to give up something because by legislation, we don't have to because we're independent. But being good citizens, we wanted to contribute, and we think we can give this amount without cutting to the bone or causing great injury. So,
Right.
I wanna
Reggie,
spend-
just one thing I wanted to add. We've been short grants managers for some time, so I'm hoping this does not affect that as much because we need all hands on deck to make sure we do our part to get the grants out.
Right, right. And that's why I'd like to just have a sneak at what does finally get reduced from the budget, and as far as staff positions, so we can get a level of comfort with that.
of course.
Good. Anything else on the finance, David?
No, maybe just to circle back quickly to the current year. I shared in one of my monthly reports that we had some initial challenges with the coding of some of our monies, and that's being reprogrammed as we speak. And then also there were some challenges with registering new grantees in the system. And so earlier in February, Brian and Terrell worked with the folks at OCFO on a workaround. Terrell, would you mind just sharing an update on where we are with those?
Yes, hello, Terrell Johnson, Senior Grants Officer here. So back to Bryant's report, he showed the line where it said direct payments. What the direct payments were, what we're coming up against is that brand new grantees who weren't already in the PASS system or DIF system, those two systems were having trouble talking to each other. So they were being stuck. So we had a list of grantees that the OCFO office said that we can do a direct payment. So what that is Brian created an invoice number for each of them. We collected their invoice, scanned all their things, and Kia on the finance team sent everything over to the OCFO's office. We got our first batch of payments out, confirmation. Most of them went through ACH process. So they got their payments in hand yesterday. I think about 5 or 6 on the list are checks, and those checks went out today, so they should receive them in the next few days. But it's a process that they designed to get those that were kind of stuck in the process another route so we can get them paid quicker. So any questions about that?
I'll just add, clearly the lion's share of this problem was created elsewhere, not created by us. But were there any lessons learned from this process that we want to take forward to do a better job on our side? All other things being equal from the other side, but anything in our control, any lessons learned of what we could do better, faster, smarter, cheaper?
I'll speak for myself, and I know Brian and David may want to add on, but for me, this process has given me a greater understanding of what all the pieces are and what they have to go through. And so I think most on our team know where to look in PASS, where to look in diffs. And I think last year I didn't have a full understanding of those. So this process really, I think, looped us into some solution causing and those kind of things. And just being transparent with our grantees. So those were my 2 big takeaways from the process.
And we're going to
No.
fold that into our going forward approach.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think I piggyback on what Terrell said, and I think it's increased communication more frequently with all stakeholders or parts that are handling the process. At the point that we found the issue with the budget and being a little bit more aggressive in terms of making sure that the adjustment is done quicker is one. But 2, from a programmatic perspective, if we can get better at getting registrations identified for new grantees and things of that nature, and starting that process as soon as possible. And to the point that we find that we have any kind of hiccups, identifying those or pulling our sister agencies in quicker to ask for assistance.
And so David, can we ensure that we will fold all this learning into our standard operating procedure going forward?
Yes, we will do our best, Reggie. With that said, we control one part of this very large process.
I'm talking strictly about that which we can control.
Yeah.
Which we can control.
We will. And communication, even if the communication with grantees is, hey, acknowledging receipt of your email, I don't have an update, but I will circle back to you, with an update as soon as I have one, or that type of thing. So just making sure that we're all being proactive rather than reactive where possible.
Exactly. Anything else on finance? Why don't we move on to ED? I'm
I have a
sorry.
question, sorry. And this might be a one-off question, sorry, y'all. I'm just trying to make sure I process, because I have people, reaching out to me about like funding and stuff. So I wonder, for the things that we can control, does that mean that there could potentially be considerations for earlier timelines for grants, or is that something that we can't touch? Because I know, this is beyond what you all can control, but what would that look like if we were able to have an earlier timeline, not now, but in the future, to make sure that people can get through the system in a more acceptable time frame?
That is a good question, Quanice. I think there were several unexpected hurdles at the start of the year, and they just, they sort of the impact of each compounded them all. So I think going into the next cycle, we'll have more awareness or greater awareness from the get-go as to what we need to pay attention to and make sure is moving forward. And as Brian said, making sure that we're leaning on our sister agencies if we don't see movement. And just getting a better sense. So for example, with pass registration, that is something that we have no control over. So registering new vendors with district government. And so our colleague Robert, who's taking the lead on that, was batching information, sending it to a sister agency. And the weeks were passing. And, when we reached out to them, they said, oh yeah, we've done our part. But again, as Terrell mentioned, there was this break between the two systems. So another agency that had an additional part in it was just not aware. So now we're all aware. So hopefully we can ensure that doesn't happen again. So.
And the only thing I could add to that is that the DIF system, the district integrated financial system, is brand new to us. So it is a little bit of a growing pain in terms of the implementation. So I'm looking for the district to be better and stronger in terms of the implementation of the budget going forward.
Anything else? Good. I mean, this is important. So it's important that we are prepared to speak to these issues when the community comes to us. So that's why I wanted to spend a few minutes on it. And thank you, Juanice, for your questions. That helps clarify things as well. I'll move on to the ED and agency open position stuff. Should I go first, David?
Yes, yeah, please do, Reggie.
So Jeff said, and I responded to emails to the entire set of commissioners about where we are with Aaron Myers moving into the ED position. And because there was a fair amount of confusion around whether the commission had the authority to make him acting until the council approved it, or whether we didn't. And so we went the route of, just in case that's an issue, we got the council, the general counsel from the city council helped us push through emergency temporary legislation that allows us to make that appointment. It now has to be approved by the mayor. It's gone through the city council. It's on the mayor's desk now. I've spoken with people in the mayor's office. They promised to facilitate that. So hopefully soon and very soon, we'll be able to officially bring in Aaron as the acting ED. In my conversations with him earlier this week, he's available as soon as perhaps Tuesday of next week to start in that position. Then the council, I think, have on the agenda in the next month to quote unquote approve it, approve his moving from acting to being the ED for the position. So this is moving much slower than we would have liked, but it is moving. Now, David, did I get that right?
Yes. So we have our budget oversight hearing on March 30th, and I think the plan is to have Aaron's confirmation hearing take place at the end of that hearing. So yes, so hopefully he'll be with us next week sometime.
Yeah.
Um,
Questions, comments on that? Maggie?
No, I just wanted to let you know, Reggie, that I'm happy to assist with the transition plan if that's necessary. I know there was an exchange about that. And also just wanted to thank you and other members of the selection committee for their partnership throughout the process.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Jeff is preparing the onboarding orientation. I've asked to participate in at least the first session of that, not the one with the staff, but the one just with Aaron, and invite others if they want to be a part of it as well. So Kimber, Cornice, Gretchen, Carla, any comments on where we are with the ED?
No, I'm glad that it's moving ahead, quite frankly, much faster than I thought it would be. I would like to be a part of that initial meeting.
Good. Good. Okay, so David, now agency open positions.
Yes, I will go through them pretty quickly. We have a new general counsel who's scheduled to start with us this coming Monday. We are conducting interviews for the arts education coordinator position tomorrow and Friday. We have speaking of grant managers, we have a grant management position in the public art department. The application closed this past Monday. So Denise will work with Lauren to move those applicants to interview. We also have a new grants management specialist in the grants department, and Denise is finalizing that onboarding process for that new manager. The curatorial position, there were some revisions to the position description, so that is currently with DCHR for approval, as is the community engagement position. But as soon as those position descriptions are finalized, we'll move forward with engaging folks in the application process. We also have a temporary, I may have mentioned this before, we want to have an in-house IT/tech person to help us with all of our IT and tech needs. We lean on the Office of Computer Technology, but it would be great to have somebody who's sort of a bridge between the agency staff and that person, and Octo. So our goal is to bring somebody in on a temporary basis, and that was one of the new positions for FY24. That would be a full-time position. There's also a position in finance that we're working on crafting the scope of. And then there is an open position that we underwrite at the Office of the Chief Financial Officer. They have not filled that position. And so, Brian, I don't know if there's anything we can do to help identify candidates for that, but that would be somebody in their shop whose focus would be on helping move our grantee payments forward. So yeah, so there's a lot of movement. We're keeping her working really hard in the HR department, moving all these pieces along.
So I guess for my clarification, any of those positions may be on the chopping block as we have to do okay, these are all not assumed to go away as a result of the $3 million reduction.
Correct.
So reactions, Gretchen, Quanice, Maggie, Carla?
No, I would imagine though, Reggie, that with a lot of these moving parts and open roles and possible financing or not financing for these roles, that the new executive director would have an opportunity to just kind of do an organizational assessment to make sure that you know, that we're aligning the team and building a strong team under the new leader. It sounds like he'll have an opportunity to weigh in on that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is, Maggie. It's, yeah, that he will.
Other questions, comments, reactions? Welcome, Hector.
I had some internet issues, but I apologize. But yes, thank you.
Good. Okay, office technology, my favorite topic.
So very quickly, again, we're working with the Office of Computer Technology. They put in new access points that apparently provide and cabling that provide us with a better speed. We spent a chunk of the afternoon yesterday working with them to help prep for the March 20th commission meeting, which will take place in the multi-purpose room here in our building. There were 3 technicians. I worked with Patrick and Ashley and myself, and they seem to have gotten everything in place, but they are coming back next Tuesday to make sure everything is working. So we are good to go for the March 20th meeting. And then the next, sorry.
I would say if I could just add a little context. So as we all know, we've suffered through all sorts of technology problems, whether it be a commission meeting where people couldn't hear each other and if things weren't working, or when we're having a regular video conference and the staff have to block their faces because they can't show their faces and speak because we didn't have enough bandwidth, or staff trying to use their cell phones in the office. It was just a mess, right? So across all of that stuff, David, what's your sense of what has been fixed or what is in the process of being fixed?
So as I said, they put in new access points. I don't know if the speed, internet speed is as fast as we had hoped it would be. I think part of the issue is the hardware. We need to upgrade our hardware, our desktops. And so we have been looking at whether we get new desktops for everyone or we work with laptops and docking stations and monitors. So that is in the works. And then our cell phone reception is not great. So that is another piece that Octo or DCNet is working on with AT&T.
So do you have any sense of at what time might these problems be resolved? Because this has gone on a long time. And so you need to have some sense of, do we have a deadline in mind of when we want to get, people can use their phones, they work, they have speed and they can be on video. We can do conferencing for our board meetings. But when might this happen?
So as I said, I think part of the issue is a hardware issue. So I need to talk to Brian about when we can order new desktops for staff.
So Brian, do you have a sense of how quickly or how long will it take to get that done?
Unfortunately, I don't, Reggie. This is the first we've actually discussed this today. But we can look into it and get back to you immediately.
Yes, because my frustration is we talk about this constantly. And every time it's a moving target. We're going to talk about it. We need to figure it out, you know. So we've got to put a stake in the ground of when we can get this stuff done, because it really impedes our productivity as an organization. And technology problems can be solved. And if it's an issue of new equipment and it's a budget issue, let's address it. Let's resolve it one way or the other. But this has just been dragging forever. And it's really, really, really frustrating to me and a number of the staff as well.
So Reggie,
Gretchen's hand is up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, since we have an upcoming commission meeting and probably a few more before the problem is resolved, please let's not forget that we can ask to have our meetings in Octo's beautiful conference room where there are 0 technology problems.
So why have we thought about having our meetings there? It's in the same building, right?
Yeah, on the top floor. And that's why I had the grants revamp meeting in one of the smaller rooms, but they have a huge room up there that we've used several times over the years. And there are 0 technology problems.
Right. So with the commission meeting, Gretchen, it's seen they rolled down their high-tech screens and that have cameras on them, and so I'm confident that it will work for March 20th, that there won't be an issue with it.
But if not, David, we could still reach out to them. I mean, I don't understand why we don't do that.
So Octo is providing us with the services. As I said, there were 3 technicians from Octo who worked with us yesterday, and they're going to come back to us on Tuesday to do a dry run. So if there's a problem on Tuesday, then I can reach out and see if we can use their space. But they are confident that there is connectivity in the multi-purpose room. They do not recommend us using Wi-Fi, but yesterday when they were working with us, all the equipment was grounded. We weren't using the Wi-Fi.
So we think work with Octo and them rolling their equipment to us for every commission meeting. We've solved the commission meeting problem?
Well, it depends on, are we planning moving forward to having all of the commission meetings in person, or?
I think we should, but we are where we are. So there will be people that may want to call in and should be able to call in. We should be able to do hybrid meetings. I mean, this is 2023. This is not new. We should be able to resolve this. And I'm told that even with their equipment, if indeed the mayor wants to have a meeting that requires their equipment, we won't have access to the equipment. So it doesn't sound like we've solved the problem necessarily. We solved the problem if the equipment is available. I don't understand why this is so hard. I really don't. And if I'm being unreasonable, please, somebody speak up.
So we have used technology companies in the past. We've used one company several times, and there was a second company that we reached out to. They gave us an estimate. It's pretty expensive.
Right.
So
I would suspect that what we're spending on an outside firm, if you add it up over the course of the year, we've been better to buy whatever equipment, fix the problem ourselves, right? So I'm really desperate for us to resolve this issue as opposed to constantly talking about it.
So I'm confident that the March meeting will go well. And if it does, I will start a conversation with the tech people about, the cost of the equipment, were we to purchase it ourselves and keep it at the agency for use for commission meetings and any other needs that we might have. The multi-purpose room is a good room. It's a large room. I don't know how, I don't think we'll ever go back to the days when we were all crammed into the large conference room, staff, commissioners, and members of the public. So if I can ask that we get through March 20th first, see how it works, and then I'll get an estimate for the equipment for us to purchase for ourselves, so that we don't run into an issue of
So that resolves the monthly meetings, that resolves when we have just calls like this and staff can't show their faces because of bandwidth, that resolves the cell phone usage in the office. Does that resolve all of that? Because all of that needs to be resolved.
Right, I agree. So the Office of Computer Technology came down and they put in brand new access points for internet along with cabling. They recabled the entire suite.
But does it work? I'm waiting for someone to tell me they put the stuff in and it works. Everybody says they put it in. I don't know yet whether it works. Does it work?
So it's all I can say. It's working for me. I don't know. I will reach out to staff tomorrow and with a survey to see if they're still experiencing issues with connectivity. As I said, I think part of the issue may be the hardware that we have. We did push a survey out to staff to ask them if they would prefer new desktops or if they would prefer to use laptops with docking stations and monitors. So I will circle back to Brian with that and making sure that we have the funds to purchase whatever hardware we need. If it's not a connectivity issue. We can talk to Octo about switching our service from AT&T to another provider. District government works with several providers, but AT&T was assigned to our agency. It is I don't know if you recall, Reggie, but when we met with the director of Octo, she said that the building is a LEED certified building, so it has limitations. It's a bit of a bunker and we're on the ground floor. The walls are pretty thick. Part of the suite is underground. So we may never have perfect cell phone reception. When we moved into the building 10 years ago, everybody was given a cell phone and no desk phones. And then they soon after realized that the cell phone reception was so bad that they gave everybody desk phones. But I will circle back to DCNet on that as well to make sure it's moving. The conversation with AT&T is moving forward.
I guess the question, David, is have we had like a comprehensive tech assessment and proposed implementation? So if any organization I've ever been in where you're in this situation, where you're in the bunker, you're in the basement, you put together a series of criteria that are user end needs. And then from there, they architect a system designed to optimize what we have. Has that been done? Because the way that you're describing it, it sounds to be piecemeal, but I may be mishearing you.
And, we rely on our colleagues at sister agencies to advise us. They're the experts. I can circle back to Lindsay Parker, the director of OCFO, to let her know that, where we are and we're still having connectivity issues, what else, she might be able to do. We could get a consulting firm to come in to do that for us instead of Octo and DCNet. If that's what it is we want to do, we can start looking at a procurement to do that. So.
Yeah, I just think that the end user needs are going to continue to expand because we're going to become increasingly more dependent upon content. There's video content, different kinds of content, because we have the aspiration to engage more fully with external audiences. And I just worry that with these bandwidth restrictions, you're never going to realize that kind of optimal engagement because you don't have the infrastructure to deliver it. So I would say, yeah, I mean, Reggie, I would be all in favor of having someone evaluate what needs we have and then do an assessment and have an integrated plan to meet our needs versus these kind of piecemeal solutions, which I don't think are going to get us to where we want to be.
I mean, my additional frustration is I'm told, and that maybe it's just made up, that such an assessment has happened at least once, if not twice. A requirement came through of equipment we needed to purchase, and for whatever reason we didn't, either because we couldn't afford it or we didn't want to spend the money, do it. So we can do this again and again and again. But we need to really be serious about resolving this issue as opposed to, well, I'll talk to this person again and I'll see what happens in the meeting on March 20th. This does not sound like we're taking a comprehensive look at what the issue is and then putting before this commission. I'd like for us to be a part of the decision. Do we need to buy equipment or spend money? What do we need to do? Because the productivity impact on us is enormous. And as Maggie said, it's just going to get worse. So, I've been in this job a year and a half, and we've had this problem from the beginning, and it doesn't take a year and a half to solve this problem.
So I was not aware that a comprehensive plan had been done in the past. Brian might be aware of that. If a proposal was pushed to finance, Brian, are you aware of that having been?
Unfortunately, no. And quite honestly, the last conversation that I was part of with Octo, I was assuming that they were not assuming. We had a discussion about having a top to bottom assessment of what's needed. Buying equipment, for lack of my limited technology knowledge is that the equipment is not the issue. They could be dummy terminals. It seems to be more of the connectivity, and those are the routers, the access points, and things of that nature. The city, Octo is well aware that this whole entire building has a deficit, and they're in the process of swapping out equipment. So, but to answer the question, we really do need a top to bottom assessment of all the equipment that we have and what would be best equipment to buy, given the circumstances, meaning the walls and everything else.
So I would like to see, as quickly as possible, I'll say 30 days. That is, I'm happy to call Lindsay Parker again, because I'm the one who prompted that Friday night call with her and her people. I have her attention. She promised me they would fix the problem. If the problem isn't fixed, then I'm happy to go back to her. We need to fix this problem. This is ridiculous. So I'd like to see in 30 days an answer to the problem that puts money on the table or whatever the issues are so that we can take an action.
Reggie, can I just say that this problem's been going on way before you came on. It's been going on for a number of years, and we've had the same conversations over and over and over again. Let us also be careful about purchasing equipment. You don't want to get into purchasing a lot of technology because it changes so often. So I'm not talking about computers and laptops and desktops, but interconnectivity equipment changes depending on the powers that be, and in this case, it's Octo and what they decide to do. We could purchase equipment, connectivity equipment, and they could make a change there that would still, again, affect us. So it's got to be a wraparound meeting with them.
I agree. And once again, maybe I'm getting false information, but I was told that we purchased some equipment that was not sanctioned by Octo. And when it became a problem, they couldn't fix it because it was not equipment they had sanctioned. So we need a comprehensive assessment, as Maggie has said. We need Octo involved in it. I'm happy to speak to Lindsay Parker again directly so that we can get to a resolution. Gretchen, I'm not one who's going to relive a problem over and over again. So I'm sorry it's happened in the past and been discussed many years. We're going to resolve this issue one way or the other, because this is
I
crazy.
agree, but I'm just saying we've got to, it needs to be comprehensive, but we can't be comprehensive and out here buying stuff without Octo being intimately involved.
No, I think comprehensive means including Octo, right?
Okay.
They need to be a part of the thing. So I think we've beaten this horse enough, but this is going to be resolved. As God is my witness, we're going to resolve this thing. Okay. Anything else on any other great news on office technology, David?
No, I don't think so.
Let's go to another David topic, regaining audience marketing initiative.
So as some of you may remember, I think it was the December meeting and even the January meeting when we had a plethora of community members come to speak with us at the start of our meeting. One set of community members was Amy Austin, who's the executive director of Theater Washington, a service organization for the theater organizations in the area. And then Reg Douglas, who's the artistic director of Mosaic Theater. And they were sharing out about sort of the state of the theater business in DC, and the fact that audiences are slow to come back. And then at the following meeting, the gentleman, John Stower, who had put together the COVID-19 social and economic impact study, sort of corroborated that Amy and what Amy and Reggie shared with us. And so they've since circled back with a request that, to us, the commission, if we might be able to help the community as a whole to get people back to the arts. And that would come in the form of a sort of a PR or marketing campaign to get folks back. So I just wanted to put that in people's minds, and if it's, to see if it's something that we as the commission would like to do, or feel it's important to do, and is it a way of helping support the community as a whole.
Any action needed from us, or is this just FYI?
May I make a suggestion? In the past, the theater community had put together a marketing tool of their own, basically promoting all the theaters that were live at a given time, the programming, and it was an entire listing. And that used to work with, in fact, the Destination DC and several other of the promotional arms for the district. The question here is, have they gone back to this coalition And have we, and should we, and I believe we should, participate with Destination DC to promote all art activities because they're, in a certain way, a window to Washington DC for those individuals that want to visit Washington, the city. So I think that it has got to be approached from a coalition perspective of different arts organizations to put availability so people can look at real current information that if they're coming to Washington DC, they could actually put their seats on theater seats, and go to places where they are welcome. And because right now, I don't think that there is an existing place where you could go for everything, except for with the Destination DC, and that would be the alliance that we should work with.
So what's the action that we need to take?
The action is, I would suggest very strongly that we approach Destination DC to see what marketing avenues do they presently have that we can actually participate in and or recommend our members to participate in. And there's got to be a collection point. And previously, there was, that I recall from my days of tourism, a place where you would have the Cherry Blossom Festival people participate, you would have the theaters participate, you would have the museums participate. So it was a one-stop shop that you would go and see anything and everything that was available during any given time in Washington DC. And that something I think that has somewhat died, but I think it's a ball that can be picked up by Destination DC, but we must find out if they are doing it. Elliot Ferguson's office would probably be the one to do that.
David, reaction?
Yeah, I agree with you. And, speaking of coalitions, Hector, cultural tourism is now become part of Events DC. So, Events DC would be a good partner to pull in as well. I think, and marketing, PR are not my space, but I think part of it is a marketing campaign and part of it is a PR campaign. I know there's a difference or distinction between both. I guess my question is, would we like for Theater Washington to submit a formal proposal as to what it is they would like for us to do?
I think that in many ways, we can't necessarily work as their agent. They have got to work with the way that this information is going to be disseminated and through what avenue or let's say communication method that would best effectively attract the tourists to come to their place. Because it's not just about the local individuals, but people coming into the city. And that would be a mutually supportive sort of, coalition. The Restaurant Association, Destination DC, Events DC, all participate in this kind of coalition for activities that promote each other. And I think that that's where we should start with our inquiry. What are they doing and how can we then support it? And then inform our members as to how they can participate in their own right. Okay.
Right.
David,
Yeah.
I had some ideas around marketing and communications campaigns, which I've kind of talked a little bit to Reggie about, but I would love to help support in any way if there's opportunities.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Hector, and thanks, Ponies.
I'm struggling with what the action is, David. Perhaps you have a better sense.
Right. Maybe it's a matter of us reaching out to some of the entities that Hector mentioned, just to see we don't want to duplicate effort. I don't know a lot about Destination DC, so I don't know if their focus is, on bringing tourists to the area.
Destination DC. It says it in its own, title.
Right.
So it's the whole idea of bringing people in and conventions into the city. That is their only reason for existence. So
Right.
we really desperately need to tag on to them so that
Right.
they could actually be the spokesperson that we could actually use their communication tools in order to go out to the general public and let people know. And the theater community could go to them. All the communities that we serve can basically work through that same agency. I mean, the same kind
Right.
of network point.
They actually used to have a publication that listed theaters and arts events and upcoming events, monthly, weekly. So I agree,
Yes.
Hector, I think they're doing it electronically and hard copy. For
They are
tourists.
doing electronically now. It almost dies instantly the moment you publish it. So, they're doing it mostly electronically.
Yeah.
If they're
Well,
still doing it, I don't know. But
And
I believe they are because you can see it at the convention center.
Oh, so perhaps I'm just being dense. So we have the conversation with Destination DC, and then what? Are we giving them more money? Are we giving them advice? Well, I'm trying to figure out what is the action other than the
so
conversation.
I guess the reason I asked that question of Hector is that I'm assuming, and it may be an incorrect assumption, that the majority of the audiences for DC theaters are local DMV audiences. I know the National Theater pulls in a lot of tourists visiting the area. But maybe that's a question, Jeff, that we can ask of the theaters. What is the makeup of the audience? So.
Destination DC does also local advertising, regional advertising. So
Absolutely.
it is all part of it. They really encompass that's DC plus outside of DC.
So can
But
someone help
it's
me?
worth going after them and having at least a discussion to find out what do they recommend for us to be able to pursue. And I don't think we can underwrite the project, but we can at least provide a vehicle in which our members or people who are serviced by us that we fund can participate with them on their own volition, based on their own coalition.
I think there's a little bit of a gap here too. We can't be dependent on outside sources for continuous communication. So it just sounds like the commission needs to have its own external communications campaigns and strategy. And then we need to tap people as a part of coalitions for our own communications and marketing.
Juanice, I agree, but why can't we
Yeah.
do both?
I
Right.
wasn't saying we couldn't do both, but I'm saying I don't want us to just say, let's do this one thing, and there's still a gap of our own communication strategy. Nobody was saying we couldn't do both.
One service is, there are two different purposes. One is for our own organization. The other one is for other organizations that are dependent on bringing people in. So yeah, both can exist simultaneously. It's just a matter of hopefully tying them both.
I'm looking on their website right now, and they actually have a section about up and coming events, view all events. So we need to be tied into them because they have a very large audience.
Well, I would defer to others on what the action is, because I promise you, I do not understand what we've decided. I mean, we had a conversation, but so we're gonna talk to Destination DC, and then what? Do we have money to fund this stuff? Are we gonna offer them advice? Are we gonna give them access to our database? I can't figure out what the action is.
Reggie, we have, or David, somebody, we have a communications person on our staff, correct?
Right.
Okay. To me, the action to me is to assure or make sure that that person reaches out to Destination DC to see what opportunities there are to use their vehicle. That would be one of the items, I would think.
Right. But somebody's got to be responsible for making those connections and being able to follow up with them and to implement them. The
Our
problem is that, as a
communications person.
commissioner, you can't do that. You're not empowered to do that.
Our communications person.
Yeah.
We have somebody on staff that is don't we?
We do. We have a whole department, marketing communications department. So, let me connect with Jeff and let's identify, other than just Destination DC, Events DC, the Creative Affairs Office, that's part of OCTFME, really just to see what, if anything, they are doing to get audiences back into performing arts venues, so that, with the hope of us working, together rather than, various threads going in parallel or at odds with one another. I'll also circle back to Theater Washington to see if they have more, if they can provide us with a more robust understanding of why people are not coming back to the theater in the same numbers as the pre-pandemic level.
Good. Anything else on this?
And Quinny's dropped something in the chat. I think we need an organizational marketing strategy first before we bring in other partners. We need to have a cohesive pitch of the work of the commission and how we support the sector.
Now, there was something similar to that, a discussion I think, David, you had with Jeff and the marketing team and communications team, and I think Maggie was a part of it. So I'm not sure where we're on that. That's part of my problem. I think that, the biggest issue is how do we have the right sort of marketing and communication prowess ourselves before we're going off to question and try to apply or connect ourselves to others. And I just don't know what it is. So I'm confused. And perhaps we should take it offline because we have a
Right.
short agenda.
Yeah, yeah, we probably need to dig into it a little bit more to see what the possibilities or the options are. So.
Let's go on to the grants revamp. Gretchen, sorry.
Thank you, Reggie. We're just going to cover 2 points from grants revamp. And that's the grant application assistance program and the fellowship program update that we had been talking about before. Terrell, where are you? You are.
I'm here.
Okay, you want to talk about the grant application assistance program? That was one of the action items from the grants revamp.
Yep. So the Grant Application Assistance Program. The program will contract CAH grantees, providing additional financial support for our artists. It's designed to provide technical assistance with the grant application process in all 8 wards, inform community members of the grant programs the commissions offer, and remove barriers to entry by providing computer access and hands-on technical assistance. As of today, we have 10 contractors confirmed to participate. One of which is fluent in Spanish. The contractors reside in wards 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8. Venue possibilities currently include MLK Library, Southeast Tennis and Learning Center, Shaw Community Center, Project Create Studio, and Cardozo Senior High School. The plan is to secure contracts and begin assigning contractors within the coming weeks. The workshops will conclude in late April as the grant programs open in early May. So right now, both Camille and Melvin are our staff leads on this program. And I wanted to pause there to see if anyone had any questions about that. This program, in the beginning, Reggie would always say, how do we take the CAH to the community and not always say they have to be here? So this is our attempt to make sure that we are in all 8 wards, that people don't have to come to us. If you don't have a computer, if you don't have access, if you need the directions in Spanish, we are doing all those things with this program. So I want to open it up to any questions you may have.
Questions?
No questions, but just a comment. This is something we've been talking about doing since the task force, and this is actually having people in the community at sites to sit down with a computer, with access, having been trained on our portal to actually help people complete grant applications there. And the reason we're using contractors, of course, is because we don't want it to be a conflict of interest, so it couldn't be CAH employees. So this way, we're actually doing something that was a long ago task force recommendation, but I think we're getting there.
The challenge here is how do you tell the end user or the person who is hopefully the beneficiary of applying for grants, to know about this? We could have these individuals in different places, but at the same time, how do we get the cooperation of, for example, the office of OLA, the office of OLA, mayor's office on OLA, and other such offices to promote to their own constituents that this service is being made available? I think we could use these tools themselves in addition to if we devise a specific time and period in which this is going to be done, to spend some dollars in advertising in the languages and in the basic papers or whatever information routes they use to be able to find out what we're doing. But just to kind of have this, we have to let everybody know, and we're going to depend on a lot of different people, including spending some dollars in advertising.
That was part of it, Hector. That,
Yeah.
we only addressed one part. The other part was getting involved with the communications people in all the council offices, because they had not just sending the information, but talking with them, following up, making sure it gets into their newsletters and into their distribution lists, which are huge. It's talking with the ministers of the large church organizations that, I mean, we've talked about that piece of it. Terrell, you want to address that?
Yeah, and so Gretchen's exactly right. So we actually are come and present in one of our committee meetings. We gave him feedback of some of the things that we were looking for, some of the places we wanted to go into, and he devised a plan of how we can, different ways that we can get connected with these different communities. One is connecting directly with the neighborhood ANCs so that they can become partners and we can get information in the direct hands of neighborhoods. The other is there's different organizations like Busboys and Poets and different, we're not looking at just the traditional spots during the 9 to 5 hours. We're actually looking at if we can do things that happen after 6 p.m. when people get off work. So we're really being strategic about making sure this help is out there. And the bigger focus, I think, also is that just the last couple of weeks we've had, just with our portal process and those kind of things, people have difficulties navigating the system. When you have someone that's sitting in these places, it takes the fear of doing it off of the person and it provides support. So great point, Hector. But we do have a plan that we're thinking about, and we can definitely circle back and get more, share that with you. And then if you have additional routes that you would like to see, we can add those as well.
It's just a matter of strategically, when is this going to happen? Basically so that it aligns with the scheduling of the grants coming out. Because if it's done post the grants, who cares? If you're gonna have to wait an entire year before, you could apply because it's lost information.
No, Hector,
So
Hector, it's ready.
Yep. Yeah. So the contractors will be in place for in the next couple of weeks. So because they're contractors, we have to get a PO established. This program will run until the end of April. Our grant program's open in May. So it's just we're going to do the technical assistance, show them how to do it. But then even while the grant is open, we'll look at having additional dates while the grant is open if people are having trouble. The nice thing about it is that we can post locations on our website. So in addition to, hey, this grant is open, but we're in these places on these dates. If you have trouble or if you just want some additional help or finding out if these grants are for me.
Let's make sure that we not just post it at the beginning of the website, but onto the specific grants page where it's the first thing they see when they open up that portion of the website. Please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Other aspects of the revamp, Gretchen?
Yes, one more. Carrie, are you?
Yep.
Where's Carrie?
Carrie is here.
Hello.
Yep.
Oh, there you are. Okay, great.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Kleba. I am one of the grant managers here, and I've been taking the lead on the fellowship revamp. So just a status report for where we are right now. At the start of February, we sent out a survey to all applicants for the last 3 years, which included the relief and recovery applicants, as well as all of our fellows applicants, regardless of their success, because we did want that feedback from those who were unsuccessful as well. We asked for feedback about the application process itself, about the fellowship program, as well as what are the current greatest needs and barriers for our artists, and any other general feedback they wanted to offer us. We kept the survey open for just over 30 days, so it recently closed, and we're currently reviewing those comments and the feedback that we received. We also held 2 open listening sessions, and we invited that same group of artists and applicants to provide feedback. During those listening sessions, we had a brief presentation of potential changes to the fellowship program, including some context of where we have been and where we could go. And then we had an open discussion of what would be most helpful, feedback, guidance that we could get from that community. So from those actions, we had a couple of major findings. Funding is still a high priority for artists, but the general reaction to shifting the model away from what we have been doing to a different model was generally positive. And our artists identified pretty strongly some additional needs that would help them, including opportunities for networking, the need for space to work, both to rehearse, to create art, and to present, and where they needed that. So the next steps we have coming up, our staff is reviewing feedback that we've received from our artists, and we're going to work on revised guidelines and criteria for the fellowship to present. We're also going to review our paneling process, and if we need to make any changes to our current paneling model to support the new fellowship model. And then we're also going to set up workshops and come up with an outreach plan to communicate the opportunity for the grant to the community, to try and also reach those communities and those audiences we have not yet reached. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Carrie. Does anyone have questions?
No questions, but I assume this will be on the agenda for the full commission meeting. But this is the
Absolutely,
event topic.
absolutely.
Questions, Maggie, Hector, Kimber, Juanice,
None from me, Reggie. Thank you.
Carla?
Were there any issues with regard to housing support or, I would just say rent support?
Rent support was not brought up specifically.
Okay.
A lot of artists did, in commentary, it was split. There were some references to just the general rising costs over all of living in the city, but was really demonstrated as a high need was needing spaces to create work and spaces to present work. Places for dancers to perform, for musicians to perform, for artists to create larger works than they can create in their home studios and things like that. But I'll be compiling all those findings for us to review.
Great.
Wonderful. Great. Thank
Great.
you.
I mean, I think this is great because it gets to the core of the real needs that our constituents have. And what we set in place many years ago was based on what people needed at that time. Clearly, the world has changed. So I'm glad that not only have we evolved over time to address them, but this special effort here is yet better. So,
Absolutely.
David, you seem annoyed.
No.
Because that wasn't intended to be an indictment of anything we did in the past, just that we constantly have to do more and different because the world is changing.
No, I agree. It's important, and it's important that we are led by the community and the community need.
Exactly. Thank you. Anything else, Gretchen?
No,
other
that's
questions?
it. Thank you.
Carla, what is this Art Basel thing? What is that? And is it Basil, Basil?
Basil, named after the town in Spain, I think. Switzerland.
I thought it was after Basil Patterson, the guy in New York. Just kidding.
No. So we are excited about our movement with our version of Art Basel, which currently, I'll start with what we're calling right now as Art All Night Reimagined. Okay, we're using Art All Night, which is our existing program, as the foundation for what we aspire to be as our version of Art Basel. Art All Night Reimagined is going to be kind of the transformation process. So over the next couple of years, we will work with Art All Night or work through Art All Night to begin to transform aspects of that program into the Art Basel initiative. Okay. So one of the first things that we want to do is secure community and stakeholder buy-in or stakeholder buy-in up front. So we have proposed to have a stakeholder meeting And we've kind of drilled down on April 7th as the possible date for that. And the purpose of that meeting would be to present the concept and the vision of Art All Night to key stakeholders in order to exchange ideas, address any concerns, and generate support. We would do that through a kind of fireside chat luncheon hosted by Reggie and I guess Christy Whitfield at the DSLBA, which are our partners in this. They have been spearheading Art All Night.
DSLBD.
Sorry, I always thank you. And so we would have this luncheon to kind of begin to have conversations around what this event would look like moving forward. Some of the things that we've talked about is expanding the audience for Art All Night. So what does the new Art All Night Reimagined include? That would be including, of course, visual artists and musicians and performing artists, but we'd also kind of expand it to include culinary, for example. And we'll be adding to that. And we're, instead of referring to everybody as artists, we're going to focus on creatives. I think the next step is we've also identified kind of some criteria for the organizations that we'd want to have at this next stakeholder meeting. And that would be representative of a cross section of all of our grantees. I think there are a lot of little pieces to this. So if at this point, if you have questions, happy to answer questions. But I think the main thing we wanted to let the board know today is that we are moving forward. We do have this meeting that we'd like to get on the calendar for April 7th. And we have some next steps, which include doing a survey with stakeholders so that we can present some of that information at the luncheon, and then we can just begin to build on top of that.
A couple of things. I'm looking at my calendar. April 7th is Good Friday. I don't know if that's a problem or not, but for some people that could be a problem. So I think we need to rethink that, maybe the 6th or something. Second, the plan is for Carla to present at the March 20th commission meeting. And for those of us who are confused like me, the meeting was supposed to be March 27th when we said at the beginning of the year, but we moved it up to March 20th. So the next commission meeting is March 20th. And there's a committee of people, Lauren and Terrell and Melvin, that will work with Carla to rev a document that will be presented at the commission meetings on March 20th. But as Carla said, we wanted to make sure that any questions or concerns any of us have at this point, we hear so that we can put it into the thinking that evolves this document and thinking to get ready for the March 20th meeting. So I'm gonna do my usual round robin reactions. Gretchen, any reactions, questions, comments, concerns?
No, I'm totally Carla and I've spoken. I'm totally in support of what she's presented.
Good. Maggie?
No, I just think it's really exciting, Reggie, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more and happy to help as I can, Carla. It's been very, very exciting to see it come together.
Good. Kimber?
I'm also very much in support of it.
Juanice?
I'm good. Yes. I support.
Hector?
I'm totally in support. It sounds fabulous. The only thing is, may I suggest wholeheartedly to invite Elliot Ferguson, which is with the tourism arm, and Angie Gates, who is the head of the convention center, so that you have also some thought partners as well as people who could open a lot of doors as to amplifying this particular program into the future. I think that it will be really a good idea to invite them.
Yes.
Good. Good. And we will have to work on the date, Carla.
Okay.
For the luncheon thing, right? From the staff, David, Terrell, Brian, Jeff, Lauren, any reactions to what you've heard? And again, nothing's written in stone yet, but we want to make sure we capture all thoughts and work them through appropriately.
And I want to thank Terrell and Lauren and Melvin, for their input into this document. We do have it on the Google Drive and Gretchen. And so everybody's just been kind of adding to it. If anybody's interested in checking it out, I'm happy to add you to it.
We're good? So good. Why don't we go on to CAH Foundation? Jeff.
Sure. So last month, Reggie, David, and myself met with Chairman Middleton and talked about a number of topics. One of which was this idea of commission establishing a nonprofit foundation arm that could take care of some things like act as a fiscal agent for smaller groups or make grants to organizations that did not yet have a 501c3 status. The chairman seemed very receptive to it because he saw that this could address an equity issue in funding. But he said that he felt like legislation would be required to make it happen, to authorize us to do this, which is what we had been thinking previously too. So I've reached out to his legislative director, Evan, and asked, what the status is on that legislation. If it's still in progress, is it going to be a standalone bill or part of the BSA? So we're just waiting to hear back from him on that, as far as what we can expect timeline wise.
Questions, comments? It's moving along. And I should say that Chairman Middleton also, we briefed him on the Art Basel idea. And even though he had never heard of Art Basel, as we explained it to him, he didn't have any resistance. He certainly was open to us continuing to think it through and work it through, and then bring something more solidified to him if indeed we needed his help for it.
And he appreciated the potential that it could have in drawing tourism, because that's certainly a concern, post-COVID, I think.
Right. And it's undeniable what Art Basel Miami has done for Miami. It's undeniable. So if we can get a portion of that same impact in DC, I think would be tax revenue. Yes, Lauren. Anything else on that? Okay, artist live workspace. We've touched upon it, but now let's have a fulsome discussion there. And that's Hector and Gretchen and David, I think.
I had 3 takeaway items from our meeting this morning, and basically that we are going to be looking at grants, our own grant programs internally, to see where we can make some immediate impact. That we are meeting with outside entities such as DEMPED, John Fulcecchio, the Anacostia Arts District personnel, as an advocate for new developments, so that we can make sure that they have at the front of their focus a need for this artist live workspace in new developments and RFPs that are going to be issued. And then the third item was reaching out to ArtSpace, which is an organization that has developed 2 sites right here in the Washington DMV, rather, Brooklyn and in Mount Rainier, and to see what their plans are and how they got around some of the obstacles that we had spoken about. Those were my 3 takeaway points from this morning. Anybody else who was there? Hector, want to add anything?
Yeah, just merely on the issue of the wording and the intentionality to maintain artists in residence in the District of Columbia. I think it's a very important facet that, should be outlined, but other than that, I think you've pretty well covered all the most important points.
Hey, David, did you guys ever follow up with Deb Gottesman about the seminary space? I was just curious.
No, Maggie, I didn't. I can circle back to her.
So this was Gretchen, I think I may have, you had sent me some information about the owner, but this is just that space that the theater community had suggested was laying dormant and was potentially available for acquisition, and they thought would be a great space to house working artists. But it's been several months now. Might be good to just circle back to her and let her know that we're looking into it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I've been talking to Jeff about some other things. You know, space, as I'm sure you all know, is really, really expensive. We've been having a conversation about a space recently, and the monthly rent is about $13,000 for a small black box space, and so that sort of means an annual rent is $150,000. And putting a small arts organization in a space like that, and putting them under that amount, like a pretty significant amount of pressure to generate that amount of revenue plus for space rental is I think it's hard for us to know. We're trying to figure out where our place in the space conversation is. Can we better serve people by providing individual artists, as Gretchen and Hector mentioned, with CAH, so that they can determine what they need, how they use the money, if they use it to sustain their residency, or a workspace, or just their general operating support, as it were. So we're still trying to figure out what that looks like and how we intersect with other agencies such as DIMPED and entities such as the Anacostia bid.
So what are the next steps here?
The next steps are for us to go back and look internally at our own grants program to see whether we can tweak or should we create a specific grants program to deal with, this would be short term, whether we can create something to help artists out within the next grant cycle. The second component would be, I think, was it David and Jeff are going to be talking to Art Space. I think it's the two of you. Am I correct?
Yes. Yep.
Talking to Art Space about their approach and pros, cons of how they've done it, where their new plans are, how we can fit into that. And then I'm going to continue the conversations with DIMPED and Anacostia to see what opportunities there are, but that would be long range.
And do we yet have a sense of how big the problem is and what meaningful we could do? So for example, if we had $1 million that we could do in grants, would $10,000 to each of 1,000 people be sufficient, or is it a $20,000 problem, or is it I'm trying to get a sense of scoping the problem and scoping our possible solution. Perhaps we're not there yet, but I don't know if we had any thinking along that lines.
But I'm sorry. Yeah, based on the history of the amount of grants that have been given out, they've worked between about $7,000. At least that's the figure that kind of came to mind when this happened. If we elaborate and set aside, and I mentioned this at the meeting that we had, a certain amount of dollars on an annual basis as a set aside for this kind of residency support program, you could probably do about $1 million and then figure out what amount on a monthly basis we could allocate for this purpose and reach as many people as possible, that are need, because that will be, $700 to $1,000 would be very significant money for anyone that is staying in Washington, D.C. that is struggling, to support themselves here, or to have workspace or even living space.
I just didn't know. I didn't know what amount of money would be meaningful. I know what we've given before, and I'm not sure if that's the best they could get, so they took it, or if it really met their need. I just don't know, and I don't know the population, the number of grantees that we would want to shoot for that would make an impact versus helping a few people, but a whole bunch of people are left unaided. So I just don't know the scope of the problem.
I don't know the breadth of it either, Reggie, but I think we have some statistics on some of the relief grants we've given to individuals. We could start there.
Yeah.
And work our way from there.
Okay. Good. Anything else on the live workspace? There's no other business, I guess, because the agenda forces us just to this, right, Jeff? So,
no, you can, if anyone has other business, they can bring it up now.
any other business anybody wants to bring up? I'll do my usual round robin. Quanice?
No, I have to jump off because I have another meeting, but I could definitely send a full email to the exec committee for any updates.
Great. Kimber?
Good too. Thank you.
Maggie,
Yeah, I'm good, Reggie. Thank you. Good work, everyone.
Gretchen,
Nope, I'm fine. Thank you.
Hector,
I'm good.
Carla,
I'm good. Thank you.
David, Jeff, Ryan, Terrell, anybody? Well, this concludes today's business. The time is now 5:31 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your time. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.